Hey yo, what it do, what it do? It's your boy Q, and the Apex Legends Esports World Cup event was absolutely lit. And even better than that, the super team didn't win. We've got Esports World Cup group stages coming up for Rocket League here in like a week and a half. And even better than that, VCT Champs currently going on right now. We're already into the playoffs bracket as well. We've got a Rocket League event getting shut down due to the fact that the supporting org closes its doors. We've got a list of off-season events going on between now and the end of the year. And we're on the countdown for Mannheim for Split 2 playoffs for ALGS. So let's go ahead and get down and do what it do. Let's go ahead and get started with the VCT playoffs here, since that's currently going on. It's actually going to be starting back up here tomorrow, Wednesday in the morning. Wish I could be saying I was watch partying. Unfortunately, not cool enough just quite yet there, unfortunately, chat, but that's all right. That is all right. We are down to that playoff bracket like I was talking about. If you've missed your boys' pick'ems, I definitely recommend y'all checking out that video. If you guys are watching over here on YouTube, that'll be up there in that top right-hand corner. But, you know, I think when it comes to VCT, man, first things first, where in the world did Trace Esports come from? Going 2-0, being able to, one, upset Vitality, but then to be able to turn around and then also beat Leviathan in that winner's match, being able to beat them over on Bind, and then honestly being able to absolutely beat down Leviathan on Ascent 13-5. You know, it's kind of hard to call it. You almost wonder if both of those teams almost overlooked Trace Esports. Not sure if any teams are going to be making that mistake again. Of course, they do face off against EDG, who's a very common opponent for them in that opening round of the upper bracket quarterfinals. Unfortunately, we've got 3 regional matchups when it comes to that opening round. Of course, the good news is with the opening round having those regional matchups, we're less likely to see those regional matchups come back into play as far as for elimination games. So, I mean, silver lining, I guess you can call it there, right? But yeah, don't know where Trace Esports came from. Unfortunately, I think they are going to be only have been successful in the group play. I just don't see them being able to pick up much in the actual playoffs. Again, starting off against EDG, who I think has swept them the last 3 or 4 times they've played each other or something like that. And then after that, when they go into that lower bracket, going to be playing against the loser of either DRX or Sentinel. So Trace Esports just might be heading out 0-2 in the playoffs. Only time will tell. Also kind of interesting to think about looking at our playoff list here. I know I had talked about for my pick'ems heading into champs, I thought there was a good chance we were going to be seeing 3 Pacific teams at this stage in the playoffs. And ironically enough, the Pacific's last hope is the team that used to always be the Pacific's only hope, or I think biggest hope, which was DRX. I mean, Gen G going out early, falling to, Team Heretics in the winners match, and then falling to Sentinels after beating Sentinels in the opening match. In a sweep, nonetheless, only being able to secure themselves 15 rounds over the course of 2 maps. Pretty wild. It's hard to be too upset about the Gen G season though, right? I mean, really the one team that was like the staple of consistency up until this point. And they did have a really, really tough draw, losing to Heretics, who was able to finally figure out Gen G, and then falling to Sentinels there as well. Crazy to think that NA has 3 teams really in the top 8 right now. NA on top. Let's go. Y'all already know I'm a big fan whenever we see NA on top in these big professional leagues. I mean, we've got Leviathan, who of course was my pick at the preseason to be one of the top teams in the world. We've also got Sentinels, of course, since they did take that spot in Group B from Gen G. I think the biggest surprise is G2. Yeah, G2's already had 1 top 4, but can they go from Ascension to Champions here now that they've got themselves a spot in the playoffs? It's going to be tough. They're going to have to start off against Leviathan. That should be an absolute knock 'em out, drag 'em out sort of matchup there between the 2 Americas squads. Man, I feel like, especially seeing the recent changes within VCT, right? That now that you have to be able to qualify for champs, if G2 is able to come out to champs and have a top 4, top 2, top 1 finish, it shows that is indeed doable. Of course, there's always that talk of should G2 have originally been in one of those 10 teams that got themselves a franchise spot. That's a debate that we can have a later day, right? But for G2, you know, I mean, they're going to start off against Leviathan. I would almost say that G2 is definitely, should I say almost, they are. They're on the tougher side of the bracket. I mean, when you look at their side of the playoff bracket, that bottom half, you got Leviathan as their opening matchup, and then you play the winner of Heretics and Fnatic if you happen to pull off the dub. If not, you got to play the loser of those two to keep your hopes alive in the playoffs anyways. So it just feels like that side of the bracket is going to be insane. I don't know, man. Would love to see G2 pull it off. I mean, especially with the success that we're seeing G2 have across some of their other titles as well, kind of this reemergence of G2 as like a dominant org in esports. But man, there's so many other just stories when you think about what can happen at Ascension, right? Even just in Americas, when you look at the team that G2 is playing in the opening round, Leviathan. I mean, Aspas has the ability to really cement himself as like the GOAT of VCT. And it's funny because like the last, I mean, really couple of years at VCT Champions, we had El Diablo, Yay, back in 2022. Of course, we'll talk about him in just a couple of minutes. We had Demon 1 popping up out of nowhere and all of a sudden becoming the MVP last season. But Aspas has been the one player that's been like the consistent like number 2 duelist in the world. Now can finally cement himself at that spot at the top. I feel like for Leviathan, even though they're obviously in the same side of the bracket as G2, got to be feeling a lot better about their chances. One, feels like Leviathan's going to have the upper hand on G2, in my opinion, in that matchup. But then even after that, if Fnatic wins their matchup against Team Heretics, which if I had to guess is probably how it happens, just because Team Fnatic looks like the Team Fnatic of old, Fnatic has always kind of struggled against Aspas, right? Like Aspas has always had their number. But of course, you know, if Fnatic is unable to win their first game, then all of a sudden can Team Heretics push themselves over the top after getting better each and every major, right? They had a top, I think it was a top 8 finish the first time, finished top 2 last time, now trying to push up into that top 1 as well. But I think one of the big things that everyone's really wondering is how good can the Chinese teams do now that we're in the playoffs? And unfortunately, since they're matched up against one another, one of them is going to have to take an L in the opening round. Of course, the good news is at least one Chinese team is going to get at least a dub there in Seoul for Champions. It's going to be a tough road for EDG. Would love to see it. I think the big thing with them being on the side of the DRX half of the bracket, man, is just I really do feel like DRX really is going to have a good run in the playoffs. I still feel like they've been very vastly underrated, despite the fact that they have been overperforming expectations in stage 2, as well as here kind of in the play, like the postseason as well. I don't know, man. All I know is we've got 2 more weeks of the 2024 season for VCT, and it promises to be a goodie. Unfortunately, like I said earlier, we're not going to be able to do watch parties like we do for ALGS and RLCS, just because your boy ain't cool enough for it, but we're definitely going to be talking about it quite a bit over on the YouTube, as well as, of course, we'll be talking about it on future podcast episodes as well. One thing that's really cool about the here last couple of weeks, it actually was just announced the other day, we've got a list of off-season events that we're going to be getting over the course of the next few months. First things first, I'm the realist. Anyways, you'll be able to see here, we've got, of course, Ascension going to be starting up at the end of August, moving into September. Going to be trying to watch as much of that as possible, as much as my schedule does allow. We've got Challengers kicking back off as far as in September. We've got the off season as well. We've got Game Changers kicking off in November. As far as like the off season though, we talk about Ascension. Ascension and EMEA is going to be the first one that kicks off at the end of August. Americas is what we will probably be watching the most of. That's going to be September 9th through 21st. Obviously, during that time frame, your boy will be in and out of the hospital because we got Little Man number 2 on the way, as well as we'll be watching some of RLCS Worlds, not RLCS Worlds. Esports World Cup will be done before that, but it'll be Major number 2 we'll be watching. And I think ALGS playoffs should be done by then, right? Right? Or no, that first weekend is going to be the weekend of playoffs, so maybe we'll miss just a little bit. No, playoffs will be done right before that as far as for ALGS. Yeah, so we'll be able to watch at least quite a bit of it. Obviously, make sure you guys are tuning in. But then we've got a list of other events going on. 14 in Pacific, 8 in EMEA, 10 in America, and 2 in China. We're going to be getting started off as early as the middle of September, of course, with Challengers being just about wrapped up, or as far as Ascension, I should say, being just about wrapped up. We've got Red Bull home ground qualifiers at the end of September. Sentinel show matches are going to be going on. The Ludwig Tarek Invitational number 3 is going to be going on. Sen City Classic in November. So, we've got quite a bit going on. I'm going to be trying to see how much we can tune into. Of course, here in September, the high school esports scene starts back up that your boy works in, so that will be taking up a lot of our time. But you can see here on the screen, if you are watching here over on YouTube, the calendar's pretty packed as far as these last couple of months for VCT, which is going to be nice because once Rocket League kind of starts to calm down, that'll be kind of winding down. So we'll probably try and catch as much of the VCT off season as possible for sure here. Also, that was announced today. Let me find it here real quick. It was announced that Bleed Esports is doing a complete overhaul for the 2025 VCT season. They're going to be letting go Ye, Zest, Darion, and Retla. But the big thing I want to say, Zest, I feel like might be getting moved a little bit early. And your boy tried telling you guys the Ye project wasn't going to work when Ye went over to Pacific. I think everyone was still expecting the Ye from 2022. Now the question becomes, with Ye losing the spot in VCT Americas, getting sent down to Challengers, struggling in VCT Challengers in Americas, then running off to VCT Pacific, playing with Bleed, also struggling over there, is this the end of Ye? And if it's not, where do you guys think Ye ends up landing next? Definitely feel free to let me know down in those comments here below. Remember those likes as well. Those are the things that help out YouTube. They should be pumping out the content in front of more people, where we do talk a little bit of everything over here, obviously with the podcast, but also over on YouTube with long form content as well. It's crazy to think that so many high profile duelists have essentially fallen off this year. You've got Ye, Demon 1 still on the bench for NRG. Artist, I don't think was nearly as impressive as he had been in previous years. I don't know if it's just about new talent coming up or what the dealio is. Maybe if you guys have some ideas on that, definitely feel free to let me know down in the comments below. I was not surprised to see that Bleed is going to go with an overhaul for their roster. Obviously, very much struggling over the course of this year. But to have that big of a overhaul, it's going to make it tough for them to try and maintain their spot. I believe they still have one more year to try and qualify for champs in order to maintain. But of course, they are also in Pacific. So we've seen how strong the Pacific looks this year, right? So we'll definitely be keeping an eye as far as for VCT playoffs, VCT champions for the playoffs bracket. Like I said before, if you haven't got a chance to check out our pick'ems for the playoffs, make sure y'all are checking that video right up yonder way or there. Also, I'll have it posted at the end of the video as well. All right. As far as for VCT, though, I think it's enough Valorant talk for me because we've got a couple more weeks of it left. Speaking of a couple more weeks of it left, flashbang warning for our YouTube content people. Let's go ahead and talk about the Esports World Cup for ALGS. For Apex, man, that went on not this past weekend that just got done, but the weekend before. Of course, we didn't do a podcast last week because your boy's schedule was super packed and crazy. But the Esports World Cup was pretty fuego, man. The stage looked good. The action was packed. Unsurprisingly, Team Falcons really able to roll through Group A. Twisted Minds right behind them. And then also even when we got to the finals, Team Falcons sat up at the top of the scoreboard, despite the fact that they were unable to bring things home with the double. I did want to kind of talk about the format a little bit, though, for Esports World Cup, because I felt like during the group stages, I felt like the 10 games was a little bit long. I really do feel like that 8-game series is kind of like the magic number. In 6 games, right? You have 2 pop-off games. You can pretty well secure yourself a spot in the next round. In 8 games, you have to still have at least some level of consistency after that, right? And I feel like for when you get to 10 games, you can then have just a little bit too many variables for those last couple of spots, in my opinion. As much as I did love seeing, the end of both of the group stages as well as the last chance qualifiers, those last spots, whether it was the top 9 in group stages or the top 2 even in the last chance qualifier, only came down to a couple of points. So I obviously very tightly fought, hardly fought for the teams trying to advance to the next group. But I don't think I'm a very big fan of only being able to see some teams for 2 series. And especially when you think about the teams in Group A, right? They played on Thursday. You qualify in top 9. You don't play again until Sunday while you're watching all these other people playing. You know what I mean? And again, it's a 10-game series, and it's only the one 10-game series versus where ALGS, you've got a couple of group stages, a couple of group series to play through to get that consistency, to kind of get your feel for the weekend, right? I don't know if I'd necessarily mind if they went with just this structure for the format, strictly for Esports World Cup, because I do like the difference. I was really surprised, though, I gotta say, in the last chance qualifier round, it felt like we should have been seeing a lot more inting from teams in the bottom half of the standings after, say, games, 4, 5, even 6, when only the top 2 teams are going to make it. It seems like a lot of teams just kind of got complacent, so just kind of kept playing their regular game instead of trying to push up towards the top. You wonder if there's more inting and stuff like that going on. Does maybe a team like a TSM, a Northeption, a Fennel, maybe not a Fennel, they're far enough behind, but some of those teams that are right behind, maybe they, get the benefit of Space Station Gaming going down to a extra third party that they weren't necessarily expecting, right? But when it did come to grand finals, Team Falcons, they were on match point relatively quickly. There are 13 games overall. I think Team Falcons were on match point after game 5. Does that sound right? No, it was after game 6, I think they were on match point. After their 16 kill first place finish. But then after that, kind of struggling. I mean, you had a couple of close finishes in games 8 and 9. You can even say in 12th where they finished 4th, but also up there you have an 11th, a 15th, and then in that last and final game, a 16th place as well. Now, I do know that there were some talks, and it wasn't rumors, it's been confirmed. People have been talking about it, both Hal and Zero. There was a stomach bug going around. So I don't know if that had any sort of effect during the performance. I know Hal was saying he was very locked in on championship day, but obviously playing with a stomach bug isn't exactly the most comfortable of things when you're sitting on stage for 30 minutes to an hour at a time, right? We had 13 teams overall on match point going into... Oh, I just realized it says when they had match points. So yeah, Falcons were the first team after game number 6. We had 13 teams on match point going into our 13th game. Was a banger, man. I felt like at times there were multiple teams who kind of threw away some opportunities to be able to call themselves champions, which I think will have multiple teams feeling encouraged heading into Mannheim for ALGS Split 2 playoffs. I mean, we've already got scrims going on for Split 2. I can't help but wonder if the Falcons' loss, and let me know what you guys think, chat. Do you feel like the Falcons' loss guarantees that Falcons bounce back, right? The storyline, and they actually take ALGS Split 2 playoffs? Or does this show that everybody else, that the Falcons are indeed beatable? Is maybe this finally the monkey off the back for Alliance for them to realize that they can hoist a trophy? They don't need to be seen as just a group stage team. Are they maybe able to rattle off a couple in a row? We saw LG was super close a couple of times. I mean, they moved on to game match point in game number 12. or they were on match point after game 11. And then they came second in game 12 and third in game 13. So, I mean, LG was close. Twisted Mayans had a crazy ass play in game number 12 where Strafing Flame was able to clutch things out, get his squad back. They were able to pick up a dub. I even said during my watch party, I thought they were going to go back to back to be able to secure things. They unfortunately fell out in like 7th. Yeah, they were in the top 10, but they fell out just a little bit early. I really do feel like ALGS Split 2 LAN could be on the table for anyone. Obviously, Falcons have to be slotted as like the favorite, but I think after EWC, I think the odds as far as favorites for Team Falcons have to drop a little bit. Of course, if you guys disagree, feel free to let me know down in the comments below. We'll be able to also start talking about drop spots when we talk about for Split 2 playoffs here in the coming days. We don't have the drop spots just quite yet. Actually, the POI draft literally just started 15 minutes ago. Started while we were recording this. Maybe we'll do a video or something about our thoughts based off of where teams are landing, what their drop spots are, chances are based off of their POI draft. Maybe that could be some good content. That's something you guys think you would like to hear, like to see. Maybe even we can talk to, I know Dia is a big fan of like the POI draft. Maybe we can talk with Dia, bring him on and kind of pick his brain about things. Maybe that could be really, really fun. But we'll definitely be, tuning into scrims as much as possible. Again, where my schedule allows. From what I've seen so far, it looks like we're going to have ourselves a crypto Watson meta. I think a lot of people are going to get incredibly annoyed with the amount of EMPs that are going to be going on over the course of a game. But unless something heavy changes, I have a feeling we're going to be seeing quite a few cryptos. Of course, then you wonder for some teams out there who do have those crypto players on their roster, does that maybe encourage a better performance for them come Split 2 LAN? Of course, we've talked about VCT, we've talked about ALGS. Let's do a quick talk here real quick about RLCS, what we've got going on in Rocket League. Obviously, we're going on a little bit of a break here before RLCS Split 2 Major. Before we get to there, we're going to have our Esports World Cup portion as well. But before we talk about the Esports World Cup, we've got to talk about the Shift Summer League, man. Chat. Y'all know I was covering the Shift Summer League over here on the channel. We were breaking down the weekly gameplay. We were doing watch parties and stuff. That was supposed to wrap up last week. It got postponed to the fact that Oxygen Esports is looks like they're going to be going under. Released a bunch of people. Looks like they're going to be closing their doors, which is super sad news. And man, we gotta get past this point in the industry where we have people trying to put on events when they don't have money for it, man. It's such a bad look, not just for the team as they exit, obviously, and it makes it so there's more of that bad taste in people's mouth when an org does leave, but you got to think about the volatility of the esports scene in general, man. Having events like this, and especially an event where we had 3 full weeks of group play getting played out, we're getting ready for the playoffs, and literally the announcement for the closing, for the postponement or delay or whatever they ended up saying for the Shift Summer League. I don't think they officially canceled it yet. I think it's still technically like put it as postponed, but it's postponed indefinitely. But the postponement came out like 30 minutes before playoffs were supposed to start, man. It's not a good look. We have got to find some way to really tighten things up when we talk about as far as the esports industry. But you know what? We're talking about Rocket League. We don't have to worry about Split 2 playoffs, or sorry, the major just quite yet. And it's not even the Split 2 major. I just realized we've already had the Split 2 major. We've got World Championships for Rocket League coming up here actually in a month from now. But before that, we do have the Esports World Cup. Group stages for this, I believe, start, next week. Is it next Wednesday, the first day? Yeah, next Wednesday is the first day. It looks like Group A and Group B are going to be playing during then. If you have not seen the tier list that your boy put together for the Esports World Cup Rocket League, do make sure you guys are checking that link right on up there. Obviously, I didn't do pick'ems because group stage can change and stuff like that, but I did do kind of my tier list of who I thought would be advancing, who I thought has a good chance of winning. The interesting thing with the fact that NAS is going to be playing with G2 Stride, all of a sudden I don't know how confident I feel in G2, to be honest. I feel like still probably a top 4 team, but I don't know if I feel like they're guaranteed grand finals the way that we've seen them get to in every other event thus far in this, or at least the RLCS season, right? We've also got Jorias, who's going to be playing with Chiefs Esports Club, who I do think gives them a little bit of a bump, especially because they are in a group with Gentlemates and Space Station Gaming. There's a world where Chiefs Esports might be able to find themselves out of the group stage and into the playoffs. And I don't know, man. Group stage should be a lot of fun. We'll definitely be doing a lot of watch partying over here, at least where my schedule does allow. It looks like that's going to be going on relatively early in the morning. Going to be starting on Wednesday at 9 o'clock in the morning. So get ready, get excited for some early morning Rocket League, y'all. We're going to be doing that over here as well as over on the Twitch channel. So make sure y'all are following. Of course, if you're over here on this YouTube, subscribe, turn those notifications on so we can catch y'all back for that. I'm not gonna lie, I wish we had the team battles format like we had during Gamers 8 last year. Obviously the Esports World Cup is like a rebranded Gamers 8, a little bit bigger, a little bit better, and if I had to guess, they're probably sticking to the 3v3 format in order to give it a little bit more like validity, I guess you can say, right? You don't have the twos, you don't have the ones. But I do feel like having that little bit of a mix is a nice little way to keep things fresh. We just talked about as far as for the Apex side of things, how the format's a little bit different for Apex. I feel like we could have stuck with a little bit of a difference in the format for Rocket League as well. I don't know. I think I'm going to be missing it a lot. Not seeing the twos, not seeing the ones. Definitely let me know what you guys think down in those comments below, especially for our YouTube watchers, listeners, etc. I think the most fun group to pay attention to is definitely going to be Group D. I feel bad for the Gaming Gladiators. Just don't see them qualifying, but I think the rest of that could be relatively interesting. And I even think Group C, to an extent, could be interesting as well, just because Twisted Minds could throw a little wrench into things as well. But otherwise, I do feel like when you look at the groups, you can kind of expect who's going to be leaving each group, right? Like G2, BDS, you know, love Limitless, the Limitless boys, they know that. Power looked impressive in OCE. I just don't see either of them being able to overcome those two teams. You've got Falcons and Gen G in the same group, as well as Across the Pond and Team Secret. Group C is Furia and Nikosi Ballers, which is an SSA team. Vitality and Twisted Minds. Again, I think Twisted Minds could be a curveball there, but it's going to be an uphill climb for them. I really feel like Group D is the only group where there's not like a guaranteed two teams coming out of groups play, and I don't want that to be a knock against SSG, because I do think everyone's expecting Gentlemates to perform since they are going to be back onto LAN as well. But again, I mean, when you have these team changes, when you have, you know, subs that pop in that could bring a little bit of a different sort of play style, maybe bring some a little bit of extra fresh life to the squad, especially a team like Joria's going over and playing with Kaka and Hunter. Who knows? Maybe all of a sudden this team can be explosive. Have themselves a little bit of a honeymoon period during the Esports World Cup. I do feel like, though, when you look at the teams, it's hard to say that Falcons aren't the favorite, just because, one, they're going to be playing in front of their home crowd, something that Falcons don't get to do on the international stage very often, right? So if you're going to do it, you might as well find a way to bring home the dub. I also think they have a point to prove after falling just a little bit short during the Split 2 Major. And they know that G2 isn't going to be at full strength either. So if there's going to be a time for them to win, the time is now. I do think Falcons come out on top, but I'm definitely going to be watching every step of the way. If you guys are wanting to watch, especially if you want to join in those watch parties, make sure y'all are following the Twitch or y'all are subbed over here on YouTube. Trying to think if there's anything else as far as esports wise that we want to get off the chest, man. I think this is the first time I'm actually going to be able to keep an episode like right around that 30-minute mark without going too crazy over. So appreciate y'all tuning in for this episode, man. Episode 14. We're just going to continue to keep things rolling. The next coming weeks are going to be a rather busy, winding down the rest of esports season. I'm going to be trying to still pumping these things out. But then, of course, obviously a heads up, we're about a month out from introducing another little man into the world. Having number 2 as far as kiddos showing up here in about a month. So when that happens, my schedule may get a little bit crazy. I'm going to try and do podcasts here still weekly. And to add to the hecticness, not only having another kid getting introduced into the world here in a month, but literally a week after that, I do start up the casting for the high school league that I was very heavily involved with last year, doing content and stuff with them, as well as casting, hosting 4 days a week. So that is going to be taking a priority then as well. Make sure you guys are involved over on social medias, man. Help your boy out. And we're trying to keep things rocking. We're trying to keep things rolling. If you guys are listening to this on like a podcast platform like Spotify or something like that, if you haven't already left a review, do me a favor and do that. Help your boy out. Yeah, man, let's have a banger last couple of weeks of summer when it comes to esports, man. But I appreciate y'all for tuning on in, guys, man. It's been another banger episode, able to keep it right around that lunchtime feel. And until we catch y'all back for the next one, man, don't forget, with everything crazy going on in the world today, be true, be you, be sincere, game hard and love hard. All right, y'all? It's your boy Q, signing out.